I had a patient, 68 years old, who'd forget whole conversations by the next day. 8 months later, his brain imaging showed the atrophy reversed. No medication, only food. There are 10 specific foods you can buy that directly target the biology of cognitive decline: amyloid clearance, synaptic repair, blood flow, and neuroinflammation. The first one is probably in your kitchen right now, but you're almost certainly using it wrong. Food number 10, extra virgin olive oil. Your brain has a security system called the blood-brain barrier. It's a wall of cells that decides what gets in and what stays out. Most toxins bounce off, but amyloid beta, the toxic protein that builds into plaques in Alzheimer's disease, can slip through the cracks. Once inside, it accumulates and damages the brain from the inside. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal. This isn't a supplement. It's a natural polyphenol that does something most people don't know is possible. It physically restores that barrier. In Alzheimer's disease mouse models, oleocanthal activates two specific transporters, P-glycoprotein and LRP1, that grab amyloid beta already inside the brain and escort it back out across the barrier, where your body can clear it. I had a patient, 72 years old, with mild cognitive impairment. Early signs of memory loss, the kind that keeps you up at night. After 6 months of consistent extra virgin olive oil use, her brain imaging showed restoration of barrier integrity. The gate was working again. The dose that matters is more than 7 grams daily, roughly half a tablespoon. Studies tracking people over 28 years found a 28% lower risk of dementia-related death in those hitting that threshold. That's not excessive. That's one good salad dressing, or a drizzle over soup, or a dip for bread. The practical move is to swap out everything else: margarine, mayonnaise, seed oils. Replace them with extra virgin olive oil. Don't cook with it at high heat. The heat destroys oleocanthal. Use it raw: salads, drizzles, dips. The damage happens the moment you heat it past 160 degrees. Quality matters. High phenolic varieties cost more, but they contain the active compounds you need. If budget is tight, use smaller amounts of premium oil mixed with cheaper olive oil. You get the benefit from less. The Predimed trial proved this works in real people. Over 6.5 years, it tracked people already showing early memory loss. The Mediterranean diet, supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, slowed cognitive decline measurably. The striking finding came from neuroimaging. This was the first dietary intervention in humans with evidence of brain volume preservation. Not growth. Prevention of the atrophy that normally accelerates with advancing age. The gate doesn't just function, the brain stays intact. Food number 9, fatty fish. While oleocanthal is clearing out the garbage, DHA is building new. DHA is a long-chain omega-3 fatty acid found in fatty fish, and it does something counterintuitive. It tells your hippocampus, the memory center of your brain, to create new neurons. Not protect old ones, build new ones. Most people assume the brain stops making neurons after childhood. That's wrong. Your hippocampus generates new neurons throughout your life, even into your 80s. But it only does this if you have enough DHA. Without it, neurogenesis stops. The machinery is there, but it stays offline. Here's the data. People eating fatty fish weekly showed a 47% lower risk of dementia over 9 years. The people with the highest blood levels of DHA had measurably slower cognitive aging, as if their brains were aging several years slower than the calendar said they should be. Animal research shows why. When you deplete DHA, amyloid accumulation accelerates. When you restore it, the accumulation reverses. The mechanism is neurogenesis. New neurons with healthy connections crowd out the damaged circuitry. The dosage is 2 to 3 servings weekly, which gives you 180 to 1,000 milligrams of DHA per serving. Wild salmon and sardines are highest. Canned is acceptable and cheaper. The DHA survives the canning process. If you're under 65 and don't have memory problems yet, start now. The neurogenesis takes months to compound. If you're already noticing lapses, DHA still helps, but the effect works slower because you're starting from behind. The budget hack nobody talks about is canned sardines. They cost a fraction of fresh salmon and deliver comparable DHA per ounce. Pair them with extra virgin olive oil. The fat helps absorption. But building new neurons is only half the equation. Those new neurons need fuel to function. Food number 8. Eggs. One egg yolk contains 112 milligrams of choline. Most people have never heard of choline. Your doctor probably hasn't mentioned it, but your brain can't function without it. Choline is the raw material your brain uses to manufacture acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for memory formation, attention, and the ability to hold information long enough to use it. When choline is low, acetylcholine production drops. Memory gets foggy. Focus becomes scattered. People eating eggs weekly had slower memory decline with age. Those deficient in choline experienced accelerated cognitive aging, as if their brains were aging faster than they should. The connection is direct. Eggs work better than choline supplements because the yolk contains lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants that protect the eye and the brain. Add in B vitamins that lower homocysteine, a known dementia risk factor, and you've got more than just a source of choline. It's not one nutrient, it's a constellation. And the synergy is what makes the difference. 1 to 2 eggs daily gives you 200 to 225 milligrams of choline, exceeding your baseline needs. The yolk is the medicine. The yolk is everything. Soft-boiled or poached preserves more choline than scrambled. Fried in extra virgin olive oil is ideal. People skip eggs because they're afraid of cholesterol. That fear is outdated. Dietary cholesterol doesn't drive blood cholesterol the way saturated fat does. Your brain needs cholesterol to build synapses. It's structural. It's not optional. But acetylcholine can only work if the space between neurons, the synapse, is clean and clear. Food number 7. Blueberries. A 12-week study of wild blueberry juice in 9 older adults with early memory loss produced results that shouldn't have worked on such a small group. Verbal paired associate learning, a test of memory encoding, improved by 13.2 points versus a 9.3 baseline. The effect size was 1.78. In research terms, that's not noise, that's a signal. Anthocyanins in blueberries cross into the brain and concentrate specifically in the hippocampus. But they don't just protect there, they do 3 simultaneous things. They stop amyloid beta from clumping into plaques. They activate the brain's immune cells to physically consume existing plaques. And they scrub oxidative stress from the synaptic gaps, the spaces between neurons where communication happens. The specific compound is cyanidin 3-O-glucopyranoside. It blocks amyloid oligomerization, that toxic middle stage where small proteins link together before hardening into full plaques. Stop it there, and you prevent the architecture of the disease from forming at all. 150 to 240 grams fresh daily, roughly 1.5 cups, or 24 grams of freeze-dried powder, taken for at least 12 to 16 weeks, delivers measurable cognitive benefits. Frozen blueberries retain the anthocyanins and cost less than fresh. Avoid blueberry muffins. The sugar load counteracts the benefit. Add them to oatmeal, yogurt, or smoothies. Expect 8 to 12 weeks before memory sharpens. But clearing toxins isn't enough if the supply lines delivering oxygen and glucose to those synapses can't keep up. Food number 6. Dark chocolate, 70 to 85% cocoa. A single 35-gram serving of 70% dark chocolate improved memory test performance 2 hours later compared to white chocolate. But the longer-term finding was stranger. People eating it monthly showed sustained elevation in BDNF and dopamine, the chemicals that support motivation, mood, and cognitive reserve. The effects lasted 3 weeks after they stopped eating it. Flavonoids in cocoa work through an entirely different mechanism than blueberries use. They dilate blood vessels in the brain. Specifically, cocoa flavonoids activate an enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase, which tells the cells lining your brain's blood vessels to relax and widen. More blood flow means more oxygen and glucose reaching the tissue that needs it most. People with better cerebral blood flow have slower cognitive decline. The dose is 35 grams daily, roughly 1 small square of 70 to 85% cocoa. Higher percentages deliver more flavonoids and less sugar. Eating it after a meal helps because dietary fat improves absorption. Pair it with almonds or walnuts to add omega-3s and magnesium, 2 minerals that support nerve conduction and mitochondrial function. Quality chocolate costs more upfront, but lasts longer than other foods on this list. Milk chocolate and added sugars don't work. Sugar spikes insulin, accelerating cognitive decline. You need the high cocoa varieties, even if they taste more bitter. And here's what makes this even more powerful. When you pair dark chocolate with a specific food that comes later on this list, the blood flow effect doesn't just improve, it multiplies in ways the research barely talks about. But that local blood flow improvement only works if you're not constantly triggering the immune cells inside your brain to attack. Food number 5, coffee. People drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee daily had lower Parkinson's and Alzheimer's risk in longitudinal studies, a dose-dependent effect that plateaued at 400 milligrams of caffeine. Coffee contains over 1,000 bioactive compounds. Most people think caffeine is the only one that matters. It's not. Chlorogenic acid and caffeic acid, polyphenols in coffee, cross the blood-brain barrier and suppress the activation of microglia, the immune cells in the brain. When microglia are chronically activated, they release TNF-alpha and IL-6, pro-inflammatory cytokines that corrode cognitive function. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors, preventing the fatigue signal. But the polyphenols do something distinct. They prevent immune cell activation in the first place, so neuroinflammation never escalates. A Journal of Nutrition study found higher caffeine intake correlated with better mental function test performance. The effect was stronger in people over 60, the population most vulnerable to decline. The dosage is 200 to 400 milligrams of caffeine daily, roughly 2 to 3 cups of brewed coffee. Cold brew retains polyphenols like hot brewed does. Timing matters, morning or early afternoon. After 2 p.m., caffeine fragments sleep quality and defeats the purpose. Organic, single-origin coffee has higher polyphenol density than commercial blends. High heat roasts destroy some of the protective compounds. Remember back in the dark chocolate section when I said pairing it with a specific food multiplies the blood flow effect? This is it. Coffee and dark chocolate together create a synergy shown in preclinical work to amplify neuroprotection beyond what either delivers alone. But suppressing an existing inflammatory response is different from preventing inflammation from starting in the first place. Food number 4, turmeric, curcumin. A randomized controlled trial showed curcumin increased BDNF by over 50% within a month. BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein that signals your brain to construct new neural connections, to wire synapses together, to create the physical substrate for memory and learning. This matters because most people over 60 have declining BDNF. The protein drops year after year. Your brain's ability to rewire itself deteriorates. Curcumin is one of the few dietary compounds that measurably reverses this decline. The mechanism works through 2 distinct pathways. Curcumin activates NRF2, a master regulator that switches on antioxidant genes throughout the brain. Simultaneously, it blocks NF-kappa B, a transcription factor that drives the neuroinflammation underlying Alzheimer's disease. You're not just reducing inflammation, you're flipping the genetic switches that control whether inflammation happens at all. But here's the problem. Curcumin has a barrier to reaching your brain at all. And if you don't know about it, you're essentially wasting the turmeric. The absorption problem is real. Curcumin has poor bioavailability on its own. Only 1 to 3% actually makes it into your bloodstream. Add black pepper and fat, and bioavailability jumps 2,000%. Black pepper contains piperine. Fat solubilizes curcumin. The combination is non-negotiable. The practical dosage is 500 to 1,000 milligrams of curcumin daily with black pepper and a fat source, coconut oil, olive oil, fatty fish. Golden milk, turmeric plus black pepper plus coconut milk, taken 2 to 3 times weekly, hits the target. Turmeric in curries with coconut oil works. A supplement works if consistency is difficult. BDNF elevation takes 2 to 4 weeks. Cognitive effects, improved focus, sharper memory, appear by weeks 6 to 8. Food number 3, walnuts. Here's where the evidence shifts into territory most doctors never discuss. Your gut bacteria aren't invaders, they're partners, and they're the reason walnuts change how your brain declines. A Mediterranean diet study found that nut consumption, especially walnuts, lowered cognitive decline risk. But the mechanism wasn't what researchers initially expected. The walnuts weren't directly protecting neurons at all. They were transforming the ecosystem living inside your intestines. Walnuts are rich in alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3, and polyphenols. Your gut bacteria consume these compounds and produce metabolites that travel throughout your body and into your brain. The key metabolite is butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid. Butyrate is a small molecule that crosses the blood-brain barrier and increases BDNF production directly in the hippocampus. The same growth factor that curcumin elevates, but through a completely different route. Additionally, butyrate strengthens the intestinal barrier itself, preventing what's called leaky gut, where endotoxins slip through and trigger neuroinflammation throughout the body and brain. People with higher populations of butyrate-producing bacteria had slower cognitive aging. Those eating walnuts regularly showed more diverse microbiota and elevated butyrate levels in their blood. Diversity matters because it creates resilience. A diverse microbiota is harder to disrupt. It produces more of the protective metabolites your brain needs. The dosage is 1 ounce daily, roughly 23 walnuts, delivering about 2.5 grams of alpha-linolenic acid. Microbiota changes take 4 to 6 weeks. Cognitive effects follow after that. Add them to salads, oatmeal, or yogurt. Raw or lightly roasted. High heat destroys the polyphenols. Pair walnuts with other plant foods to amplify bacterial diversity. Combine walnuts with blueberries and dark chocolate, and you've created an environment that feeds butyrate-producing bacteria while simultaneously clearing amyloid and improving blood flow. The synergy compounds itself. Food number 2, leafy greens. Brain imaging studies show something striking. Older adults with the highest leafy green intake had brain volumes equivalent to people 5 to 10 years younger. The nutrient responsible is lutein, a carotenoid antioxidant most people have never heard of. Brain atrophy, shrinkage in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, precedes memory loss by years. It's the structural deterioration that enables cognitive decline. Slowing atrophy isn't metaphorical protection. It's literally preserving the physical tissue where thinking happens. Lutein and zeaxanthin accumulate in brain tissue, concentrating in the cortex and macula. Once there, they quench free radicals and stabilize mitochondrial function, the energy-producing structures inside each neuron. They also reduce lipid peroxidation, the oxidative damage to the fatty membranes that surround nerve cells. Without intact membranes, neurons can't communicate, can't fire, can't form memories. Here's the practical constraint. Lutein is fat-soluble. It requires dietary fat to absorb. Leafy greens with extra virgin olive oil or paired with fatty fish are ideal. The absorption happens in your intestine alongside dietary fat, then transport into the bloodstream and across the blood-brain barrier. The dosage is 6 or more servings of leafy greens weekly, roughly 1 cup of cooked spinach or 2 cups of raw kale. This delivers 6 to 12 milligrams of lutein daily, the amount linked to structural brain protection. Sauté spinach in olive oil with garlic. Add kale to smoothies with avocado or nut butter. Raw kale in salads with olive oil dressing works equally well. Lutein accumulates in brain tissue over months, not weeks. Cognitive benefits appear after 3 to 6 months of consistent intake. Frozen spinach is as nutrient-dense as fresh and costs less. Budget shouldn't be the barrier to this food. Food number 1, legumes. Walnuts introduced you to the gut-brain axis. Legumes are what actually scale it. While walnuts work through polyphenols and alpha-linolenic acid, legumes do the heavy lifting. They deliver the fiber your gut bacteria need to produce butyrate in meaningful amounts. The gut-brain axis isn't a secondary mechanism here, it's the central one, and it's the activation switch for your brain's repair machinery. You already know from the walnut section that butyrate is the metabolite your brain needs. Walnuts started the process, legumes complete it. The difference is fiber volume and type. Legumes deliver 6 to 8 grams of soluble fiber per half to 1 cup serving, far more than nuts can provide. This abundance of substrate is what allows your bacteria to establish a reliable, sustained butyrate-producing population. Walnuts triggered the pathway. Legumes make it durable and clinically meaningful. The research is specific. People with higher butyrate-producing bacteria showed slower cognitive aging. People eating legumes regularly had more diverse microbiota, and diversity is what protects your brain from decline. A diverse ecosystem is harder to disrupt. It produces more of the protective metabolites your brain needs. 1/2 to 1 cup of cooked legumes daily delivers 6 to 8 grams of soluble fiber. Your bacteria need 4 to 6 weeks to establish the butyrate-producing population. Cognitive effects follow after that. This isn't fast, but it's durable. The practical move is straightforward. Add legumes to meals you're already eating. Lentil soup, black beans with rice, chickpea curry with turmeric. Pair them together and you're stacking 2 BDNF elevation pathways at once. Canned legumes work. Rinse them to reduce sodium. The fiber survives intact. Most people skip legumes because they think they cause bloating. That bloating is your bacteria responding. It fades within 2 weeks as your microbiota adapts. Push through. On the other side is access to a repair system that most people never reach because they gave up on day 3. Your gut bacteria aren't invaders, they're partners. And right now, they're the difference between a brain that stabilizes and one that keeps declining. But here's what most people don't realize. Eating these 10 foods is only half the equation. There's a biological window that either locks in everything you've just built or washes it away. The people whose brains actually reverse cognitive decline aren't the ones who know about these 10 foods. They're the ones who know what comes next. They know the one thing that locks this all in place. The next video shows you exactly what it is. Watch it now.